the rest of the 362 days out of the year. This is when building a relationship becomes very important. See, relationship building now the rest of the time is very important. So for years I've been collecting data on why it's wiser to wait until you're married to have sex, and I've looked for information in sociology, psychology, medicine, and the Bible. And it's interesting that all of these support an abstinence stand. 39 times in Scripture, sexual intercourse prior to marriage is excluded from God's plan for His people. Now, what I find is people don't want to hear any more pious preaching. So I'm not going to give you any of that tonight. I'm not a preacher anyway. So I'm simply going to give you the facts. All right, let's look at fact number 1. Abstinence before marriage helps prevent unnecessary breakups. In one of the most careful studies ever done, it was found that couples who engage in sex are more likely to break up. This is true even for those who are in a formal engagement. Some studies show that twice as many engagements are broken when couples have sex. Now, do you remember I gave you the stats yesterday on how many engagements are broken anyway? What percentage of engagements are broken? Even though you're in a formal engagement, what percentage breaks up naturally anyway? Do you remember? 40 to 50% are broken. There's something that happens while you are formally engaged. You find out you're not suited for one another. Remember, engagement is not the same as a sealed contract. It's not the same as being married. And if you're not suited for one another, get out of that engagement. All right, so these studies show that twice as many engagements are broken when couples have sex, and these couples are more likely to be divorced, separated, or commit adultery. Now, can you figure out why they're more likely to commit adultery? See, if they're having sex before they're married, they're not ready to abide by certain rules anyway, God's laws anyway. Now, one reason for the increased number of breakups is the male's need for marriage lessons. Why does he need to marry if he gets his sex drive satisfied before marriage, outside of marriage? Now, part of what attracts male and female together is the sexual dimension. We each have, shall we call it, a mystery about one another. And once that mystery is unclothed or revealed, there's no longer that magnetic force to pull us together. And when a couple breaks up who have been sexually intimate, it hurts more than a couple who have not had sex. You know why? It has to do with the pair bonding process that I went through last night. All right, fact number 2. Abstinence prior to marriage assists in the prevention of cervical cancer. Young women who engage in sex with multiple partners are at a high risk of contracting cervical cancer when aged 40 to 45. When a girl has had 3 or more sexual partners, her odds of getting cervical cancer jump 15 times. About the time menstruation begins, the endocrine system is putting finishing touches on the uterus, fallopian tubes, and ovaries, and the cervix is extremely vulnerable during this time. And if it is exposed to semen from one partner or from multiple partners, she is at risk for cancer of the cervix. The semen contains so-called antigens that sensitize or code the cervix. Now, not coat, not C-O-A-T, but code, C-O-D-E, code the cervix. So she gets coded by one male semen. All right, if she has multiple partners, she then gets multiple coding from all these people. See, and what it really does is scramble her brain and her response process. This also may cause abnormal development when a girl is exposed to these antigens too early, too often, and by multiple sex partners. Now, look here. This is the normal cervix of an adult woman. Now, the cervix is an amazing organ. It has a small opening where the menstrual flow comes out. After intercourse, this is where the sperm travels through. Yet this small opening will dilate large enough so a baby can pass through and contract back down to this small opening. Now, this is a cervix that has been treated for cancer by laser. A cone-shaped piece of the cancer has been removed. Laser treatment cured this woman, but 5 to 15% of the women will have abnormal pap smears again. This means she's going to have another biopsy and go through the whole laser procedure all over again. She may never be able to have babies, or she may have her baby prematurely, or a very difficult delivery. So the fact is well established. The younger a girl becomes sexually active, the more partners she has, the more frequent the exposure to semen during those early adolescence years, the higher her chances for cancer later on. Fact number 3, abstinence before marriage prevents much sexual dysfunction for the male. Now, impotence is the inability for a male to maintain an erection. And 1 out of 10 males suffer from this problem. Now, what's the cause? The cause can be either emotional or physical, and fear and guilt are the main causes of this. Now, what's behind this? All right, a man and a woman have sex together, maybe at home, maybe at a friend's, somebody walks in, it results in guilt and fear, and this can be what's behind some impotence. Another problem for males is premature ejaculation, and this also is connected to poor sex habits before marriage. Let's say that a couple is petting to step 11. What's step 11? Hand to genital, and it's called mutual masturbation or petting to climax. So they keep going to step 11 but not to step 12. Or maybe he goes to a prostitute and he worries about getting caught. Fear and guilt take over. Now, sex experiences are written on the brain in almost an indelible ink, in our memories, never to be erased, through the intensity of the experience, through how often we rehearse or review it in our minds. And since sex is an intense experience, it's reviewed often, and because of the emotions involved, it can never be erased. Now, I want to talk about men and pornography. Huge problem in today's world. No longer does a man have to go down to the seedy side of town and into some adult shop. Doesn't have to do that anymore. All he has to do is cruise the internet, and he can find all the pictures that he wants right there on the internet. And remember that God has programmed the male to be aroused through his eyesight. And when a man has a sexual experience, he never forgets it. And when a man surrounds himself with all of this pornography, he is actually desensitizing himself to the very things that God has created to stimulate him. Now, pornography is billed as a sexual stimulant. It's not a sexual stimulant. It is really a sexual desensitizer. Now, you start out with the easy stuff, but pretty soon that doesn't do it anymore. So now you have to get in a little bit deeper, and these pornographers are very good at drawing you in and drawing you in and drawing you in, and you keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper into this stuff. And once this sensitivity is gone, see, it's just going to take more and more, heavier and heavier pornography in order to bring back the thrill that he had the last time. Now, another thing is that men who are into pornography tend to view women as objects, nothing more than a sex object. They have very low opinion of women. They are more likely to abuse a woman. Pornography depicts women as unequal or as victims. It promotes the idea that women really want to be raped. They want it. They want to be treated roughly. And so I've really got to ask you, what is it about this stuff that appeals to you if you are into it? I wish you could sit in my shoes and talk to men who are into it. One man sat before me. He was a real muscle builder, so he was a great big huge guy with muscles bulging everywhere. and yet he was deep into pornography. His second marriage was going down the tubes because of it. Tears rolling down his cheeks, and he said, "I'd give anything if I could give this stuff up." Tears running down his cheeks. A real man's man. And yet he is full-blown addiction. Once you're in a full-blown addiction, there is no way of getting out of that addiction unless you go into a sex addiction program. Only way out. It's like being addicted to a drug. Another fella that his third marriage was going down. Why? Because of pornography. Women do not like pornography. And men try to draw their wives into it, or they can't even have a sexual experience without viewing pornography. How does this make the wife feel? You know, this is bad news for any wife. This man was losing his third marriage, and he said, it's like having a demon sitting on my shoulder all the time, 24/7. How would you like to have a demon sitting on your shoulder 24/7? Sex addicts have to live a double life. They have to hide their masturbation, their internet use, their porn shop visits. They become consumed with shame. They're afraid of being discovered. They lack the ability to be intimate with anyone. Why? Because they're so absorbed with their addiction. To the sex addict, sex becomes nothing more than a mechanical process that involves another person. That other person is only an accessory to indulging in their addiction. It progressively gets worse. It begins with pornography and masturbation. It moves to live pornography and affairs. Then it moves into minor criminal offenses like prostitution, voyeurism, and exhibitionism. And it can even go into molestation, incest, and rape. Abstinence before marriage protects males from this negative impact. Fact number 4, abstinence before marriage eliminates the risk of STDs. Now let's talk about safe sex. The world is telling you to be responsible with your sex and use safe sex. Now what does safe sex mean? Use a condom, right? That's what safe sex is all about. And I want you to know that the world is lying to you when it says you won't get a sexually transmitted disease or you won't get AIDS or anything. Absolutely a lie. Now, meet Valerie. A friend introduced her to a guy she works with. The friend said, he's a doll. He's quiet and serious. He's interested in marriage and a family. So this doll asked Valerie out to dinner. Valerie accepts and agrees. He is a doll. Charming and witty, too. They have a couple more dates. They go to a play together, then a picnic in the mountains. Valerie is absolutely wild about him. She thinks he's the greatest things invented since peanuts. She invites him home for dinner at her place. Uh-oh. She did it up right. She did everything right. She brought out her best dishes, got the candles out, bought the flowers, had the table beautiful, fixed all his favorite foods. And then what do you think happened after dinner? After dinner, there were a few warm hugs, a few lingering kisses. She began to tingle all over in all the right places. In between kisses, there was romantic talk. They both think they're in love. The mood is great. And Valerie doesn't want to spoil it by asking about his past now. He senses what's on her mind with a nervous laugh. He assures her he's neither homosexual nor bisexual. He doesn't use drugs, and he tells her he's never been promiscuous and that he loves her so much. And he wants very much to make love to her. Now, do you think this is what Valerie wants to hear? Sure. All of her needs are being met right now. To be in the arms of this man that she considers to be a doll, to be married to this man, for him to be the father of her children. So, what does she do? Momentarily, she lets her guard down. There's no stopping him now. She asked him to use a condom, and he did, at first. He spent the night, but in the morning he woke her gently. This time, no condom. This was against Valerie's standards to let him spend the night, but they were so much in love, and it was so spontaneous. And you know what? It was really so good for both of them. And there was such a bond of trust between them. This relationship was made in heaven. This might even be one of these relationships where she prayed about it and God told her. Why are you laughing? We've talked about this before. You can't listen to everything that I believe that singles can hear anything they want to hear God say. See, this is one of these moments. Well, they continued to date. Lot more romance. Many more wonderful evenings together. A couple months later, Valerie develops a painful sensation in her vaginal area. She went to the doctor. The news is bad. She's got genital herpes. She called her boyfriend and confronted him. Well, he admits that he's had herpes for about a year, but he didn't think it was active right then. Now Valerie is crying. Her boyfriend is truly sorry and he never wanted to hurt her. Valerie is so hurt. She's so angry. She begins screaming uncontrollably. All he cared about was his own gratification. Now she has herpes for life. Will anybody want to marry her now? What will it do to her children? Will it always be this painful? Have you ever talked to anybody with herpes? That stuff hurts. Let me tell you, that stuff is painful to the nth degree. And the medications are so expensive. Valerie never sees her doll again. Now, listen to the facts here. The facts are that 70% of all men and women who have STDs just don't know they have them yet. What's the percentage? 70. 70% have them, they just don't know it yet. So a partner may tell you they don't have a STD, but 70% of the time he just doesn't know he has one yet. He's going to pass it on and not even know it. And you simply do not know each other's sexual history. Studies show that people are very uncomfortable discussing STDs and condom use. So they skip asking a partner and they think they can just know. I told you last night about when I went into the STD clinic to get some facts directly from the doctor at the STD clinic. And I saw this couple come in. They both had white shoes on, white socks on, white shorts on, white t-shirts on. They were the all-American couple. They looked so clean in all their white. What are they doing at an STD clinic? I think we're going to be treated here for something. One study showed that 20% of the males and 4% of the females said they would not tell a partner even if they tested positive for HIV. 50% of both sexes said they would understate the number of sex partners they had. We now have an epidemic of STDs, and one of the most rampant is chlamydia. Now here is a normal cervix. And here is a cervix that is swollen and red with chlamydia. It bleeds easily when touched. Pus drips from it. This woman got chlamydia from a man infected with it. 85% of women who have chlamydia show no symptoms. When the infection gets to her uterus, tubes, and ovaries, she will likely never be able to have her own baby. 30 to 40% of sexually active singles have chlamydia. Yeah. Okay, here is a female with syphilis on her vulva. The sores are called chancres. Chancres are usually firm and painless, but they are highly contagious because they are teeming with syphilis bacteria. Since the sore is painless and often hidden inside the vagina or cervix, a woman will not even know she's infected, but she's contagious to every sex partner from her first day of exposure, and condoms are not very effective against syphilis. Now here's syphilis on a man's lip. Such sores are not tender. He may think he just cut himself while he was shaving, or that he had a cold sore coming on. Any woman who kisses this man or who has oral sex with him could easily get syphilis from him. Most STDs, I'm saying here, most STDs can be transferred from mouth to genitals or genitals to mouth. It's almost safe for me to say all sexually transmitted diseases can be transferred back and forth, mouth to genitals, genitals to mouth. All right, here we have a syphilis chancre just above the pubic line on a woman. Obviously, a condom would not protect a man having sex with this woman. She probably got this chancre from a man who had syphilitic warts other than on his penis. Or she could have gotten this from heavy petting going to step 11. Herpes or HPV can be transmitted in the same way, just by touching the STD source or by touching the sexual secretions. Remember last night I was talking about a little puddle of gonorrhea? All right, there's a 70% increase in syphilis in the last few years. We have all the antibiotics, and yet it's out of control. Here's a syphilis chancre on a man's penis. A chancre like this is generally painless. He was wearing a condom when he had intercourse with a woman who was infected with syphilis. He thought he was protected. He was not. If he has sex with somebody else, she will not be protected, even if he uses a condom. Here is herpes on a man's penis. The herpes ulcers seen on this slide are caused by herpes simplex type 2. When first infected, herpes causes extremely painful blisters, and the person will have painful reoccurrences. Herpes can be transmitted to sex partners even when the ulcers are not present, as you heard in the story that I just gave you. 1 out of 4 women and 1 out of 5 men in the U.S. have herpes. In fact, you know what they do? They form their own singles clubs. And then they date within the club so that they don't pass it beyond their clubs. Most continue to have outbreaks throughout their lives. Outbreaks can occur 1 time per month to 1 time per year. And herpes can also be transmitted by oral sex. Here is a female with genital herpes on the vulva. A woman can suffer from 1 or more sores. The first outbreak is generally the worst. When an infection is as bad as this one, she will likely be unable to urinate. Now, those sores are extremely painful. Now, can you imagine on painful sores like that, having urine flow over it would just send you right over the top. She will likely suffer from fever, chills, muscle pain, and nausea. Herpes is one of those diseases that can be transmitted without sexual intercourse through sex play, such as going to step 11. We talked about it last night. If you are considering marriage with or marriage to anybody with herpes, you must realize that anytime the infection is active, you will also get the virus and you will have it for life. I was teaching at a university, and a woman came to me. She had lived a very colorful life in the past. She was now training to be a pastor, and she had turned her life around, and yet she had herpes. She was hoping to get married someday, have a family. Her question to me was, before I get married, do I need to tell my boyfriend, my fiancé, that I have herpes? Guys, is this something you'd like to know before you marry this girl? That was girls answering. Guys, is this something that you want to know before you marry this girl? Okay. Sounds a little more like it. Okay. Here is a male with genital warts or HPV on his penis. The warts can be much smaller than what you see here. He may not even know he has them. These warts can also result in cancer. And you can get genital warts through heavy petting, as in step 11 behaviors. How many times are you hearing this? Step 11, step 11, step 11. Okay, here is a female with genital warts in the vagina. She will need several treatments to clear this up. She may need surgery or laser treatments. Now, she could have gotten these warts through heavy petting or step 11. All right, here is a female with genital warts. a large mass. Now this type often occurs during pregnancy, and sometimes they will become so large that they fill the entire vaginal cavity, and the baby must be born cesarean. Warts of this size present a terrible problem for a female, and she may have to have laser treatment for warts like this, and the treatment is extremely painful and expensive. She may need to have the treatment more than one time. It takes weeks or months to cure, up to a year. It costs thousands of dollars, and just imagine the emotional stress that she goes through in dealing with this. Now here you see gonorrhea on a man's penis. This gonorrhea causes burning and frequency of urination, as well as pus to come from the penis. He may not even be aware he has gonorrhea. He may not be concerned over a little pus. But any girl that has intercourse with this man has a high chance of getting gonorrhea herself from just one act of intercourse. If she gets it, she can develop PID. What's PID? Pelvic inflammatory disease. And what's one of the results? You may not be able to have your own babies. Now, even an honest answer to whether a person has an STD can't be counted on as the truth. Since STDs can lie dormant and still be transmitted to someone else, herpes is contagious even when dormant and no lesions are present. Now, this is important for you to understand also, that females are more vulnerable to AIDS than males. Why? The vagina is highly susceptible to cuts or tears during intercourse. And another reason females are at higher risk is because the virus is more concentrated in the semen than in vaginal fluid, and the vagina is exposed to semen for prolonged periods of time. My son Rodney is a physician, and part of his internship was spent in Florida at a university there with 30,000 students. He was the physician on campus to see all the kids when they came in. So we were visiting him one time, and I said, Rodney, what do you see most of all? Oh, he said, colds and flu. Yeah, but I said, outside of colds and flu, what do you see? Well, he said, sexually transmitted diseases. And I said, well, what kind of sexually transmitted disease? And he told me it was genital warts. And then he told me about one girl who was a virgin when she went out with a guy. He obviously was not a virgin. She came back with not just one sexually transmitted disease, not just 2 sexually transmitted diseases, not just 3 sexually transmitted diseases, not just 4 sexually transmitted diseases. She came back with 5 sexually transmitted diseases. I think this is important for you to know, that you can get more than one at a time. More than one at a time. Now let's go back to our couple. When Valerie asked her boyfriend about sexually transmitted diseases, what do you think he's going to say? Oh yes, darling, I have gonorrhea. But I love you, and I expect you to have sex with me anyway. Huh? You think that's what you're going to hear? I don't think so. This guy is all pumped up here. He's going to say whatever he needs to say in order to get what he wants. And men need to be just as careful with the Valeries that they date. Does she have an STD that you want to carry with you the rest of your life? Both may not know. Now get this, if you've had 2 to 3 sex partners and your partner has had 2 to 3 sex partners, you have 100% chance of getting an STD. To help you understand this, take a look at this particular graph here. See Peter and Paula there at the bottom. Now track this little story, because Peter and Paula have been dating a while. They've not been sexually involved, but they're thinking about it. Both know the other has had previous partners, but neither one has been specific, nor has either one been truthful. Now, let's look at the whole picture. Peter's former girlfriend is Diane. Can you find Diane there? Okay, Peter and Diane had sex. But Diane had sex with 2 other guys, Chuck and John, before she had sex with Peter. Chuck's 3 partners before Diane were Patty, Deanna, and Judy. John's former girlfriend was Betty. Deanna had sex with one person, Jason, before Chuck. Jason's former partner was Janet. Can you follow all this? Okay, Judy's first partner was Scott. Betty had 2 previous sexual relationships with Tom and Kevin. Kevin was bisexual and involved with Jack. So if Paula thinks she's safe with Peter, she's forgetting about 13 other people in the picture. Remember, when you sleep with one person, you sleep with all their previous partners. Now here's a progression worked out. Assuming now that all have the same sex history. 1 partner per year, beginning at age 30. It would be 1 partner at the end of the year, sex with 1 person. At age 31, it would be 3 persons. Last year's partner, your current partner, and the person your current partner had sex with. At age 32, that means 8 persons. At age 33, that means 21. At age 34, 55. At age 35, 88. At age 36, 176 persons. And the cumulative effect builds yearly. Just by adding 1 partner a year. The only way to be sure you will not get an STD is complete abstinence until marriage. You need to remember also that these diseases do not cure themselves. If you think you have an STD disease, what should you do? Get to a doctor. Get it treated. Don't think it's going to go away on its own. All right, back to our facts. Fact number 5, abstinence before marriage precludes the need of abortion. Now, you don't hear much about this in the media, but women in their 40s have a rate of unwanted pregnancy that equals that of teenagers. Many adult women solve that problem by having an abortion, and millions of women suffer after effects, complications, and hysterectomies, and they can never have another child following an abortion. They also suffer a lot of mental anguish. Now, one study from the University of Minnesota included women from diverse backgrounds, and it was found that these women suffer intensely. 81% reported preoccupation with the aborted child. 73% reported flashbacks of the abortion. 69% reported feelings of craziness after the abortion. 54% reported recurring nightmares related to the abortion. 35% perceived visitation from the aborted child. 23% suffered hallucinations related to the abortion. And this is interesting because they have these symptoms in spite of the fact that 72% of them said they had no religious background at all. And yet they're still suffering from all of this. We can only imagine what would happen to a Christian woman who had an abortion. Anybody who's had an abortion needs to seek Christ's forgiveness and mercy. And once she can understand Christ's forgiveness, she can let go of the guilt, and the process of healing cannot be hurried. A woman can suffer from post-abortion trauma for 5 to 10 years after an abortion. They go on to marry unsuspecting mates, and then suddenly all of this comes alive. The guy doesn't know what he's getting married to, and yet all of this comes back to her and causes a lot of problems in her next marriage. All right. Abstinence before marriage predicts greater sexual satisfaction after marriage. One report said if a couple abstains prior to marriage, they have 30 to 47% more likely to enjoy sex after marriage. Now, isn't that chance of that kind of enjoyment worth waiting for? And this is so important. Do you understand that there is no study out there that has ever shown that sex before marriage is beneficial? It's just not there, folks. If it had been there, I would have found it. Somebody would have found it. Just doesn't happen. All right, fact number 7, abstinence before marriage promotes self-worth. Repeated indulgence in known wrong destroys self-worth. How do we find self-worth? In living by our ideals and living by God's plan for our lives. Sex outside of marriage only complicates the problems we already have. The answer to such problems can be found in a committed relationship to Jesus. Now, in the book, you're going to find, I've only presented, how many did I present? 7, 6, 5? I didn't have the number there. But in the book, there are a total of 15 reasons. I only picked out a few. So you're going to find 8 more in the book. It helps prevent sexual dysfunction for the female, helps prevent divorce, ensures a more perfect bond, decreases the likelihood of extramarital affairs, eliminates guilt feelings, predicts greater sexual satisfaction after marriage, totally eliminates the risk of pregnancy, preserves the meaning and value of the honeymoon. If you've already had sex, doesn't that kind of destroy what a honeymoon is all about? A honeymoon is a time set apart to discover each other. And if you've already had sex, you've already done a lot of that discovering. And it helps distinguish between real love and infatuation. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you want to take these kind of chances with your future? Do you want to take these kind of chances with your future? Not having sex outside of marriage. It's called abstinence. It's 100% guaranteed to work. You won't get hurt. You won't get an STD. You won't get pregnant or suffer a host of other problems. And you can choose abstinence at any time. Even if you've been previously sexually active, you can still choose that as a lifestyle now and be proud of it. It works, and it has some great rewards. You know, it's really hard for people who are sexually involved to go to church. They start avoiding church. Church doesn't mean what it used to. They don't have much of a devotional life. Think about it. See, the two, it doesn't mesh with what they know God wants for their life. All right, let's say that you want to choose now to have a sexually abstinent lifestyle. All right, let's look at some habits. If this is the way you want to live, then let's look at the way you need to conduct yourself. All right, you're going to set rules for conduct in advance. Think through your standards. You know the steps to pair bonding now. The results of rushing and skipping steps. What I want you to do is call up a number in your mind, a number that you are never going to go beyond. And then you give that number to an accountability partner. I really believe in accountability partners. But right now, you write it down and you date it. This should be a number that you would be proud to discuss with your pastor or anybody. The more clearly your standards are defined, the more likely you'll achieve them. Keep thinking positive thoughts. All right? And talk it over with your dating partner. You know what? If you know that person well enough, you should be able to talk about things. Talk about your limits. Set limits with your dating partner. This doesn't mean that you go up to your date and you say, "My name is Cynthia and I don't sleep around." No, that isn't the way it's handled. But you could bring up the subject by saying, "You know, I was watching this special on TV and it was talking about abstinence. Maybe we could discuss abstinence and set some standards for our own life here." Or you could say, "It's only fair to tell you about the standards I've chosen for my life. I'm only interested in dating relationships that do not include sex till marriage. I hope you will respect my standards and help me keep them untarnished." So see, you have to know yourself what is comfortable for you to do. You have to design this to make it something that you can handle. Now, at first, you might be a little bit stressed to be so upfront with somebody about this, but once it's out there on the table, you will see that it really clears the deck for your relationship. Even then, you have to be careful. All right, develop an action plan should you face a close encounter. Sooner or later, somebody is going to push you beyond your standards. What will you say? What will you do? A little advanced planning could help you. Let me set up a little scenario for you here. It's a nice evening. You've had a nice date with somebody that you've dated a few times. You went out to dinner, had some good conversation. You're on your way home now, and you're driving by a lake or some water, and it's nighttime, and the moon is reflecting little moon paths on the waves. And so you stop for a moment, and the music is playing in the car, and he slips his arm around her, and next thing you look up, the windows are steaming. All right, so she says, George, let's not park here. But nobody does anything about it. So pretty soon she's saying, George, let's not park. But nobody does anything about it. And pretty soon her protests are getting a little weaker. George, let's not. But nobody does anything about it. And then, George, let's. And then that becomes, George! Oh, just a little silliness here. All right, so we're going to do a little advanced planning now. All right, first of all, maybe it's only a light threat to your standards. It's not terribly threatening. So you could get up off of his lap, you can move his hand, you can say no and mean it, you can change the activity, you could start sharing your faith about Jesus, or tell a joke. Any one of these things could take care of it if it's only a light threat to your standards. But now it's a little more threatening. Now we've got a medium threat to your standards. You could say a firmer no. What part of no is it you don't understand? You see his hands are sliding over the breast now, or she turns her body so the hands are resting there. Or you could say, I feel uncomfortable when you try things like that. Or I need you to respect the standards I have chosen. Or we have no basis for a relationship. This person needs to know you mean business. Get to where others are around. Carry a cell phone and or money to make a phone call. And always, girls, always carry enough money in your, someplace on you, so that you can call a taxi and get home if you need it, just in case. All right, what if it is a serious threat? Your requests to stop have been ignored, your values and standards are about to be trampled on. This is not the time to worry about hurting anybody's feelings. Escape any way you can. Get away fast. Slap or run if necessary. And carry pepper spray or a whistle. Okay? Now, I mentioned a few minutes ago an accountability partner, and this is something that I really recommend. An Air Force pilot re-entered civilian life totally messed up. In the military, he had learned to drink and womanize. After his discharge, he continued the same lifestyle in spite of vows to clean up his act. Repeatedly, he tried to change on his own. Nothing happened until he joined a support group at his church. He became accountable to a group for a change in lifestyle, and he experienced a dramatic difference. Now, accountability is pretty powerful. It doesn't have to be to a whole group. It can be to just one person. A person that you respect, a person that you like, a person that understands you, and that person's going to pray for you, and when you go out on a date, that person knows it. You look that person in the eye, and you are going to be accountable to that person for what you do on that date, and when you come back, you have to tell them eye to eye. You know what? That'll help. That'll help big time. So I really recommend an accountability partner if you are serious about maintaining your standards. All right, plan your dates carefully in advance. Before you go out on a date with somebody that you do not know well, you need to know where you are going, who's going to be present, what activities you're going to engage in, know how you are getting there, what time you are expected to return home. And if a date can't give you this kind of information, beware. Be creative in your planning. You need to include a lot of participation dates. Now, I didn't go into this with you because this has not been a full seminar, but we have two kinds of dates, participation dates and spectator dates. What's a spectator date? Going to the movies. And you sit there in the dark theater looking and watching the movie. And what's the purpose of dating? Getting to know each other. How much are you getting to know each other by watching the movie? Next to nothing. Not a good. Other examples are going to a play or listening to music and going to concerts, that kind of thing. These are all examples of spectator dates. More creative dating is the participation type dates where you actually engaged in activities and there are other people around. Group dates are best, especially in the early stages of a relationship. You can be together and yet other people are around, and cuddling and cooing doesn't like other people around. Also in group dates, you can observe another person more accurately and better than you can in 10 single dates. Watch. How does he interact with other people? He's not so likely showing off just for you. See? So many times people will show off just for you. I'm counseling a new couple right now. He's a bodybuilder. And the first date, she knew him 5 years before she married him. Now she's upset. But now she's telling me, first date, she saw him beat a guy up. And she questioned him about, he said, I was just showing off. I'll never do that again. Well, guess what? He's been manhandling her 17-year-old son. She doesn't like it too well. You think she had forewarning on this? Yeah. She had forewarning. She didn't listen to it. See, show-off behavior comes a lot in dating. Choose your dates with care. Those dates should be those similar in age, similar interests, similar ideals. Your best dates will come from your circle of friends. Your circle of friends. People you already know something about. Avoid blind dates, pickup dates, dates with married persons, dates with those separated from their spouses, dates with drug or alcohol abusers, or anybody that's not in a position to date you openly. Okay? And no dating before the divorce is final. There's always a chance for reconciliation. Furthermore, a recently separated or divorced person is not emotionally ready to date. Now, the good news is 80% of all divorced and widowed women will eventually remarry. The bad news is second marriages have a higher divorce rate. The stats are slightly higher for men. See, one study followed divorcing partners for 5 years. 50% were found barely coping after 5 years. 25% were able to cope adequately. 25% failed to recover at all. They look back with intense longing to before the divorce occurred. Wish the divorce had never taken place. Now, family and friends, if you're just recently divorced, what do family and friends say? Oh, start dating again. It'll take your mind off the divorce. Oh, you need to get out. And yeah, you need to get out. You need to be with people, but not in a love relationship yet. I didn't tell you in here, but it takes people 2 to 5 to 7 years to recuperate after the death or divorce of a partner, depending. Get into grief recovery. Get a grief recovery class someplace. The divorced or widowed must bring closure to their pain. Can you close the doors to an old marriage overnight? No. No. Divorce leaves, we talked about this the other night, that divorce leaves bad memories, but when somebody dies, oh, what a wonderful person she was. Wonderful person he was. We only remember the good when a person dies. Now, you can't build a healthy relationship when you are an emotional wreck yourself. The divorced or widowed often search for somebody to take their pain away, and nobody can make your pain go away. You have to work through the stages of grief. So, no dating until your divorce is final. 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 Final! Next to my 2-year rule, the stupidest mistake you can make and the strongest advice I give is no dating until the divorce is final. What's my 2-year rule? What's my 2-year rule? I can't hear you. No, you don't get married until 2 years of dating. Then you get married. That's it. All right. Avoid situations designed to stimulate sexual pleasure. Now, this gets a little touchy for single adults because they're on their own. They live on, the teenagers still live with parents most of the time. But now single adults have their own apartments, their own houses. And if you are in your own house and you're entertaining a member of the opposite sex, I had a class with a 15-year-old and a 34-year-old in it. And so I said, oh, somebody's been taking you out a lot and you want to fix a nice meal for them. Would you do it at home alone? And the 15-year-old says, sure, I'll take a boyfriend home alone when my mom and dad aren't around. And the 34-year-old guy said, no way. He says, I'm not worried about the dinner. I'm worried about what would happen after the dinner. See, he'd had a little more life experience. So he knew what would be lined up there, see. Now, the first rule of conduct is no entertaining a dating partner at home alone without somebody else around. Now, you can do it when you have others around, and not for a meal, not to watch TV or a movie, not even to study the Bible. Without a group or a third party present. This also means you will not go camping together. Now, my husband and I had an RV, and we would go up into Yosemite, beautiful, not far from Fresno, where I live in California, just an hour and a quarter drive up there. We had an RV up there, and we would camp a lot in the summertime. And one night we were sleeping, we heard a camper come in, and we didn't know who it was until the next morning. And the next morning, out comes one of our single friends and her boyfriend. And the men, they could not believe that they would pull in next to Nancy and Harry Van Pelt. Of all places in the world they did not want to be, it was next to us. But she comes out and she says, listen, we were each in our own sleeping bags. Oh, yeah. Prove that one. We are to avoid even the appearance of evil. See? If you're sleeping together in the same RV, same trailer, whatever. No, nobody knows. It's okay. This means you will not sleep together and try not to have sex. Okay. I had a couple come to me. He was a multimillionaire, and he'd been going with this girl for 5 months, and they wanted some premarital guidance. They had a few problems to work out. He gave her, as a pre-engagement present, a Rolex. I don't know what you'd get for engagement. If you get a Rolex for pre-engagement, what do you get for engagement? And then I learned they had traveled from another country, actually, to see me. Then I learned that they were staying in the same hotel room. But she said, Nancy, we're not sleeping together. I said, are you in the same bed? Yeah, but they're not having sex. Oh, they're not having sex. Now, she was a gorgeous woman. And I said to him, what's it like at night watching her undress her bed and getting into bed beside you, but yet you can't do anything with this gorgeous woman? Can I tell you what he really said? And you won't be offended. He said, it's pure hell. And then big tears began to roll down his cheeks. She was shocked. See, she was so naive. She had no idea what kind of a response, what she was doing to this man. Well, the couple that wasn't sleeping together, she got pregnant. She had an abortion. They broke up. I don't know what happened to the Rolex. It means you will not travel together and share the same motel room. It means you will not take a cruise together and share the same room. These are all issues that adults have to deal with. You have to make a choice on these things. And I've mentioned just a few things. There might be more, but these are just a few things. All right, a solution for those currently in a sexual relationship. Maybe you are already in a sexual relationship. I have a solution. Number 1, admit your sinfulness. A woman sobbingly went to her pastor, and she said that she and her boyfriend were sexually involved. And she told her pastor through her tears that they never meant for things to go this far. It was a mistake. It was an accident, but she was so lonely. She lost control of her emotions, and she gave in to his demands. Now, this woman was deceiving herself. This was no accident. She and her boyfriend made a series of decisions that led directly to intercourse. Decisions that predicted that they would become sexually involved. First, they found a private place, a place where they could be alone. Second, they progressed from light petting to heavy petting to intercourse. They agreed when he tried and she permitted it. Now, these are not accidents. These are decisions every step of the way. Their morals and principles were tossed to the wind when sexual arousal took over. And the sooner that you admit that you are making choices here, the sooner you can deal with the guilt that follows. Number 2, ask God for forgiveness. Now, this is where people will whip themselves with their guilt. And I'm saying forget the sleepless nights. Forget the tears. Stop punishing yourself. Stop staying away from church. Or stop all of this, cutting yourself off from spiritual activities. All you need to do is go before the God of the universe and say, Lord, I'm sorry for this. Name it. Ask forgiveness. Then accept the forgiveness he will freely give you. We have a God who will totally and completely forgive us our sins. And it's Micah, I forget what the verse is in Micah, but it's in the book of Micah where he says he tosses our sins into the depths of the sea. Do you know that there are places in the sea that are so deep they've never found the bottom? I don't think they're ever going to find the bottom. I think it's a special place where God has for all these muck of our lives buried down there. And then we don't have to deal with it anymore. He will forgive us. However, we have to live with the memory. But don't let that memory destroy you. If you lost your virginity so long ago you can't remember with whom or where, if you've had a sexually transmitted disease, been pregnant, caused a pregnancy, had an abortion, put a child up for adoption, these things are going to linger in your memory. No doubt about it. But God has an amazing way of healing even our memories. Oh, it's Micah 7:19. We are told that God hurls our iniquities into the depths of the sea, and he frees us so we can begin again. Our sins are forgiven. It's like they never happened, And we can go forward with a smile on our face. We are free. There's a peace that comes at that point. Now, the third one you're not going to like. If you are sexually involved, you have to stop seeing each other. And there are several reasons for this. This is the hard part. But this is the only way you can sort out whether you have true love or whether you're only infatuated. You must not see each other alone for at least 6 months. You may email, you may text, you may phone. If you are engaged, you may see each other, but only when a third party is present. I don't care how you vow never to do it again. Those vows mean nothing. The minute you're alone together, it's going to happen. Just you wait and see. Remember what I said? Sex is like being addicted to a hard drug. You vow you'll never touch the stuff again, but you can't control yourself. Now, nobody else can make this decision for you. You are going to have to do it on your own. And remember, it's never too late to say no. You don't have to keep going down the same wrong path. You can make a fresh beginning starting today. He's always there to offer us love and forgiveness. And his forgiveness is unconditional. Well, maybe some of you have been saying, okay, Nancy, I've hung with you so far. But you know what? I've enjoyed what you had to say. Yeah, it was kind of interesting. But you know what? The next time I have the opportunity, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. Okay, if you're going to go ahead and do it anyway, I ask one thing, and that's double protect. Unmarried sex calls for double protection. What does this mean? It simply means that both partners use contraception, protection of some kind. This means condoms for male. They're not adequate, but they're better than nothing. Females must use the pill, vaginal jellies, foams, diaphragms, contraceptive injections, hormonal implants, whatever you want in there. And don't, ladies, I'm talking to some adult singles now, don't be fooled by early menopause. You can still get pregnant. These devices protect you against pregnancy, but unless he uses a condom every time. Particularly do young adults start out using a condom. But within a very short period of time, they don't bother anymore. Why? Because they don't see anything happen. She doesn't get pregnant, no sexually transmitted disease, so they stop using condoms. And then she does get pregnant. Now, this isn't very romantic, but neither is pregnancy or gonorrhea. This is John Tesh and Connie Selica. Not sure if you know them or not, but they're Hollywood personalities. And we are all very much influenced by Hollywood personalities, what they say and what they do. But John Tesh was the former co-host of television's Entertainment Tonight, and actress Connie Selica have learned that good things come to those who wait. This couple, who chose to wait until marriage for sex, have stated that they wanted to do everything right this time. Both were gun-shy about entering a new commitment because each had had a disastrous early marriage. After John's first marriage was dragged through the divorce courts with the kind of testimony the supermarket tabloids pounce on, John said that every couple should be forced to spend just one day in divorce court before they are given a marriage license. He spent a lot of time in therapy making sure his relationship with Connie was not on the rebound. See, do you see what he did? He did his grief work afterwards. Found out who he was, what mistakes he'd made the first time around. Now he's ready for a new relationship. Make sure that you do that kind of work. After a year's courtship, the couple flew to Carmel on the coast of California, where they helped serve Thanksgiving dinner in a mission for the homeless. Now, that's a wonderful thing to do, to test a relationship. Would the person do that with you? Would you have any fun if you did do it? They went on to nearby Monterey for a festive dinner at a restaurant on the water. Now, I don't know if any of you have been to Monterey, but it's real close to where I live. And this is God's country, let me tell you. They went on this festive dinner restaurant overlooking the water. When they arrived at the restaurant, Connie noticed that the parking lot was empty and a sign on the door read closed. She hesitated, but John pushed ahead and led her to a table in the center of the deserted restaurant. As she looked around in bewilderment, a string quartet began to play Concetta, a love song John had written for her early in their romance. Suddenly it became clear that John had rented the entire restaurant for the two of them to enjoy in the middle of their 5-course dinner. John dropped to his knees, asking for Connie's hand in marriage. How did she respond? Completely overwhelmed, she cried buckets. Her acceptance of his proposal created fireworks. An offshore barge launched a magnificent 10-minute fireworks display. But their engagement was not all fireworks, music, and romance. Both Connie and John are deeply committed Christians. They had many serious talks about the responsibilities and demands of sharing their Hollywood lives together, and spent 30 hours in premarital counseling with their pastor. In those sessions, they learned to handle disagreements. When I'm upset, I close down, Connie said. He likes to talk it through. They read books that probed into marital crises and how to solve them. May I recommend a book that I'm familiar with called Highly Effective Marriage. I had an interesting experience today. I dropped by the division office to say hello to Daniel Duda, who's a friend of mine. Daniel wasn't in, so I said to the receptionist, can I leave him a little note? Sure. She handed me a piece of paper. She said, what's your name? And I said, Nancy Van Pelt. Nancy Van Pelt. She leaped out of her seat. She said, oh, she said, I'm newly married. Now, she'd been previously married 30 years or something, and her husband had passed away. Now she's married again for a year and a half. She said, we took your book on our honeymoon together and read it. And she came around and she gave me a great big hug. See, good to read these books and get ready for a good marriage. Okay, where were we? They read books that probed into marital crises and how to solve them. They role-played. Together they studied the scriptures. In addition, they talked about religion, finances, the importance of communication on every level, and sex. They jokingly called it a slugfest among 4 people: Connie, John, the pastor, and God. But this is the best part. This high-profile couple chose premarital abstinence during their courtship for religious reasons and to be a good role model to my son, Connie added proudly. That's right. They chose to wait until their wedding night to consummate their vows. Snuggling close to John, Connie said during an interview before the marriage, our honeymoon will be traditional in every sense of the word. And John added, this is going to be some honeymoon. John Tesh and Connie Selika have been good role models not only for her son, but for the world. I believe that abstinence is, there they are again. I believe, there he is. He's, have you ever heard his music? Oh, he did a DVD. I have his DVD that he did in Sorrento, Italy. And oh, that is with the cameras up above, zooming all over. The scenery there is just fabulous, and you hear his music. Pretty amazing. But I believe that abstinence is a choice to be proud of, and I highly recommend it to all of you. Am I saying sex is wrong? No. Sex is beautiful when the time is right, and the time is after you are married. I'm going to look for one other story. This is A.C. Green. He's called the Iron Man of the NBA, or the National Basketball Association. He was a great basketball player. He played 907 consecutive games. At that time, he was a 34-year-old virgin and easy to spot in a crowd. He stands 6 feet 9 inches tall. Now, I can't convert that into whatever you measure. Well, let me tell you, folks, that's way up there. When he's playing basketball, he can probably just about drop him in there. Okay, he was, as a professional athlete, he said, he is constantly confronted by women who want to meet him. From the time he arrives in a city to the time he leaves, they're everywhere, he says, at the airports, hotel lobbies, restaurants, and sports arena. They're always there, smiling, trying to catch his eye. How can I get you to notice me? Pro basketball players have a larger-than-life image. AC hears the locker room talk about all the sexual conquests of his teammates. Yet he remained sexually pure. He chose to follow God's standards, and he told his teammates what he stands for. He believes that God has reserved sex for marriage. AC said, I'm proud to be a virgin. I have to respect myself, he said, before I can respect others. In another interview, he said, I'm waiting for marriage to interact in a sexual way with a lady. That's the bottom line. It goes along with my beliefs and my respect for myself. And that's what I highly recommend for each one of you here. We've got a few minutes. If any of you, do you have any questions you would like to ask me? Yes?
As you mentioned earlier, that for a couple who are sexually involved and they were to separate, would you recommend them marry?
Would I recommend that they marry?
Yeah.
Well, not until they complete that 6 months. There are many counselors, and I'm one of them. If I find out that a couple is sexually involved during the premarital phase, when I'm doing the premarital, they have to stop. I will not continue counseling with them. We have to separate things out here, and we cannot separate love from infatuation as long as they are sexually involved. So in my estimation, if they're sexually involved and they're not going to stop, somebody, I don't recommend marriage necessarily, but my recommendations, I would recommend that they stop. But if they're not going to stop, at least they need to see somebody. They need to do some serious investigation along the way into their relationship if they're even fit to be married, because they do not know. Sex clouds the thinking, clouds the emotions, and it creates a pseudo bond, pseudo intimacy, and we do not really know what we're seeing in that person. Okay, any other question? Yes.
How would you talk about telling somebody that you're going out with about values that's not abstinent? How do you spot the people who see that take that as a challenge?
How do you spot the person?
How would you deal with the situation that somebody, the person you're with might be like, would agree with you, but really in their mind they're seeing you as a challenge?
Oh, so they'd say one thing and then try to break you down. Well, then you still follow, you watch the signals along the way. You don't get into any threatening situations. Follow, stay with crowds for the first while. If you are dating from your circle of friends, like I recommend, then you will already know something about this person. If you're not, if you're picking this person up off the internet or personal ads in the newspaper or something, you're going to have to be a little more careful. Stay with groups, your early stages, but even then you can't trust it. You have to be really careful. Don't see that person alone. Yes?
Yesterday a question was asked about how you felt on the way that men and women dress.
Yes.
I was wondering, what is your opinion on mixed swimming?
All right, we happen to have a swimming pool in our backyard, and once a year I invite, you have student literature evangelists over here that work during the summer, sell books in order to earn a scholarship. You have that going on over here. Well, over there, they will take a group of 15 or 20 young people. These are 16 to 19-year-old kids. They're not with their homes. They are living now probably on a gymnasium floor or in a church someplace for 6 weeks and they're working a city. And these are real good kids. They've been specially screened by the leaders. They're not your normal kids. But when they come to my house to swim, the girls have to wear shirts over their bikinis. They're all going to have bikinis on, so they have to wear shirts over their bikinis because it's mixed swimming. They have to be especially careful in these groups because these kids are away from their parents. If any one of them got pregnant or something like that, then could shut the whole program down. See, so they're very, very careful with these kids. Okay, anybody else have an opinion on mixed swimming?
I don't think it's advisable, especially like you go to swimming pools. I used to go for my back. The Lord just brought it for me. This is not.
You're sure it was just for your back?
There's a danger because water relaxes you.
Yes, that's right. Water does. And
I don't think Sister White recommends that.
until what age?
What age?
Does age make a difference?
All ages.
Yes.
I think, I think everybody will have their own opinions about this. But what I think is that there's a way to be modest, even in a bathing suit. So I think perhaps if you want to go swimming in a public arena, it's probably a bit impractical, especially in a country like ours where everything is mixed, for you to say that people can't swim in mixed circumstances. So I think how I would conduct myself with this one, if I had an issue, which I don't, is that you need to just dress accordingly. I think if you look at the array of bathing suits and things you can wear to go swimming in, there's ways that you can. There's swimming costumes.
There are modest swimming suits and there are
immodest.
The immodest ones, the teeny-weeny bikinis.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think you just have to
That's
be modest.
That's part of the answer.
Yeah.
But even with a modest swimming suit, it shows plenty.
Yeah, it does.
All right, any other questions? Yes.
I don't know if you agree, but do you agree that there are homosexuals and lesbians within our church society? If there is, how should we react to them?
Yes, there are homosexuals and lesbians in our church. And let's remember that God condemns the sin, He does not condemn the sinner. And I think we need to relate to them just as we would relate to anybody else who is also a sinner. It also makes a difference whether that lifestyle is active or not. I'm dealing with a man right now whose wife left him to become a lesbian. And he has it in writing. So she went to her first, within the church it's called kinship. And she went to her first kinship meeting to see how comfortable she would be. And they were so accepting of her. She felt, I read the letter. And she felt so accepting. She thought, she was going to feel so out of place. And she told about this one and that one and the other one. They were all accepting of her. Let's remember that God accepts the sinner, not the sin. He condemns the sin. It's harder for us to do that same thing. Harder for us.
Sorry, Nancy, what's a kinship group?
A kinship group is a group within the church for homosexuals and lesbians. It's called kinship. It's an organization. All right, any other burning questions? Yes?
If you're with somebody and you've been in a sexual relationship with them and you're looking at the dating stages again, can you go back? Is it possible?
I highly recommend it. It's very difficult to back a relationship up. But see, you're not going to see that person for 6 months. So that's going to back it up right there. You can text, you can phone, you can email, but you cannot see that person alone unless you are in a formal engagement. If you're in a formal engagement, you may see them, but a third party or somebody else has to be there.
So after that 6 months should be.
But after that 6 months, then you'd have to decide whether you are, it might take you a little while seeing each other again, see if you even consider yourself suitable for each other again. But that 6 months will definitely give things a cooling off time. Yes?
Do you think it's safe that we can, as Christians, that we can surround ourselves or just be amongst the media, such as music, and do you think that we can withstand it? Because I know a lot of, especially as youth in the church, we think it's okay to do this once or twice. So it's like, it's not going to really affect us. We know what we're doing.
Yeah, it's really hard on teenagers to see what everybody else is going to the movies. I'm going to pick good ones. So I'm going to go to the movies too. You tell me a decent movie that's out there anymore. They are full of sexual connotations, blatant sexuality. They start out with a couple going to step 12, the first date. This is just accepted. They're all living together, something, all the time. This is the movies. If we see this enough times, what are we going to believe? Well, that's what everybody else is doing, so why can't I do it? I believe that God's people should separate themselves from this kind of blatant sin. Same with music. That music. It's just, again, it just inundates you with sexual connotations and blatant sexuality. And the beat of it all. You need to study into that a little bit. It's quite interesting. No, I don't think that God's people should be a part of that.
Even married.
Even when you're married?
Yeah.
Why would you want to do that when you were married?
No, say for example you're making love in marriage.
Well, that doesn't matter. What the music and the movies are filled.
Yes.
So why, if it's filled before you're married, why would you want to see filth after you're married? See, no, I don't believe that married people should be going and exposing themselves to the filth of Hollywood. No. There might be one rare movie. Have you heard of one? Let me know. I don't want to miss it. There is one. What? Lion King. I guess I missed that one. All right. Anything else? Yes.
Nancy, I can't help being a male, that's just how I am.
No, you can't help it, can you?
And I'm learning to be careful as I shave in case I nick myself and people interpret. But you spoke very much of pornography seeming to be a male domain. Does the experience out there suggest that ladies equally need to be on guard lest they get?
Yes, women can get caught up in it too, not nearly to the extent that men can. Women are not programmed by eyesight in the same way that a man is, but nevertheless, if she ever did get into it, it could become addictive to her also. I am not personally dealing with any women that are addicted to pornography. I deal with women whose husbands are addicted to pornography, and it makes them feel about this high. Devastating. The women weep, and they are rushing to counselors by the thousands, trying to find help. What do we do? What do I do? My husband's addicted to this stuff. Oh, I guess I shouldn't say too much, but I've heard it right since I've been here in England. Wife coming to me. She said, "Oh, Nancy, thank you for talking about pornography. My husband is so deep into it." Well, I talked about it, but do you think because I talked about it for a few minutes that he's going to stop it? This is a serious addiction, folks. No, he's going to have to go into a program to get over it. And guess what? This program isn't a 2-week deal either. We're talking a couple of years here. Get this filth out of his mind. Because that's what it is. And you guys probably all know what I'm talking about, because you've probably all been into it. Just don't go any further with it. That's what I'm saying. Stop it now. Yes.
I know you talked about like age differences and how it doesn't matter, but is there any like recommended age difference? Because I know sometimes girls watch more faster than boys, or if they don't go out at a certain age, is there recommended age?
Age to begin dating.
No age difference between
Age difference. Okay, yeah, especially during the teen years, girls are more mature than fellas. That does not, guys don't catch up until they're 22 to 24 is when they reach their full psychological and biological maturity. So girls, if you want to marry a guy at age 19, just be prepared to raise him and another baby. Yeah, you'll be raising 2 kids because he's not mature enough. And if he's not mature enough, what are the chances now of him staying faithful to you? Because he's still, he's still at that stage where he's looking around and so forth. So guys don't catch up somewhere between, some will reach it a little earlier, 22 to 24. But then a girl's 16, if you date a fella 16, he may be more like a 14-year-old, see, in maturity. And then a girl, but I don't know how many parents I have here of girls, but do not allow your girls to date older guys. And I've got studies on this. It's in my Smart Love book. Don't know if I could I don't know if I could find it right now, but it's dangerous stuff if you allow a girl to date at age. Have any of you found it? Any of you read that in the book? It's in there. It's a warning to parents. And most guys that get girls pregnant are 5 years older. 5 years older. Very dangerous. Yes.
Can an individual lose their virginity to themselves?
Say that again.
Can an individual lose their virginity to themselves?
Are you talking about like with masturbation or something? Well, that would be a different kind of virginity loss. I wouldn't call that a loss of virginity. I'm certainly not recommending masturbation. But masturbation is another one of those things that can get to be very addictive. And I talked to some boys that were heavily into it and suffered deep anxiety and remorse, and they really, my husband was with me at that time, and I turned this young man over to him, and Harry simply led him to the throne of grace, and by that evening, and this boy, it was like he had the weight of the world lifted off his shoulders, and he came into the meeting smiling, and so forth, because this, he felt that masturbation was such a sin. And now, I'm not recommending masturbation to anyone. Please do not get that idea. But we don't need to think of it as a sin that we can't overcome or that the Lord can't forgive. So, no, I don't think that's a loss of virginity. Yes?
You were speaking on the 2-year rule. That's
Yes.
like the minimum, right?
Yes.
So is there a maximum?
Right. Okay, this is good now. 2 years of dating before you get married. Always. First year, you are wearing masks. All right, so the masks start to come off after the first year of dating. The second year of dating, you're testing that individual out. You're seeing, aha, I see that he doesn't spend money very wisely and he isn't able to save. All right, you have to make a decision. Can you now accept that, or do you want somebody that knows how to manage money better? Now, is 2 years a maximum? No, especially not if you're 18. See, that's only a recommended. Now, you can go together longer, and it's probably good, but there comes a point that if you've dated year after year after year, dating is designed to lead to marriage. I know one girl dated the guy for 9 years. Now, wait a minute, this is stupidity. If you were old enough to get married, you should know each other well enough after, how many years. There's something, one of them is holding them back from getting married. That's stupidity. No, dating is designed to lead to marriage. And if you were old enough to be married, now marriage in the U.S. is, I did not check the stats on England. I don't know what your average marriage age is, but it's probably close to what the U.S. is. Average marrying age for the first time in the U.S. is now 25 to 27, along in there. But you've got to realize that the greatest social change that has occurred is couples living together. Now, I went through that with you the other night. And, of course, that's extremely bad. It leads to more divorce and so forth. But if you are old enough, I don't think couples should go together over 40. Trying to maintain sexual abstinence that long? No. But 2 years is a minimum. See? Yes?
What about if you have been in a relationship or friendship for 2-3 years, and then the last minute, the parents have known about your friendship, friends have known about, and then the last minute you have seen something that you feel
Bail out. If it's serious, I don't care how long you've gone together, even if it's the last minute, bail out. You don't want to go into a marriage and have to go through a divorce. Yes?
There's sometimes when couples delay marriage for financial reasons. They date for years, saving for the wedding. What advice would you give to those who are in that situation?
No, I don't believe in dating for years, saving for a wedding. A wedding is all over with in 1 hour. No, it just does not make sense to me. You want a wedding to be nice. There are many ways of saving expenses and making it nice by cutting back on flowers or cutting back someplace there and still being able to have a nice wedding, a beautiful wedding, a simple wedding, and no. Yes?
So just based on that same point, I know sort of friends who are saving up to buy a house that they could both live in after they get married, so they've got an extended courtship. In that situation, is that reasonable?
No, not in my estimation. I think it's fun when couples get married and they have nothing. And they start working together. Nowadays there's a big trend for couples in America. They want to start out with a two-car garage, 3-bedroom house. Wait a minute, I got that, but I had to wait 20 years first. But now they want to start out that way. Yes.
Nowadays, in society in the UK, it's getting harder and harder for someone like me to buy a house. It's pretty much impossible now. Does that mean we cannot really get married?
No. Just like I said, go ahead and get married. Maybe you have a little small place to start with, and you start saving, and you work your way up. Might take you 20 years, but you're doing it together. You appreciate it more. Have a common goal. All right, folks, it's been fun for me to be with you. I hope you are much wiser now than you were 3 nights ago when we started all this. And it's been my pleasure to be with you, and I'm wishing you God's richest blessings in your future. And please do your very best to stay sexually abstinent, but have fun while you're dating and just date healthy ways, okay? Thank you so much.
I can see from the reception she's received that everyone has enjoyed the 3 nights. Can you see the hands? Everyone